Okay, today I'm gonna try to jack up the car and change the front disc brake of this 2009 Honda Fit. So you're gonna see I'm gonna jack up the car now. Okay, so the key here is try to get the floor jack to that point. That's the front jack point. And as you can see, it's almost at the same line as the front two wheels. One thing I forgot to mention is that before you jack up the point, you gotta put ramp behind your two wheels or blocks of wood, concrete, bricks, anything to prevent the car rolling backwards. Okay, before I jack up the car too, besides the ramp for the rear wheels, I put W40s on the lug nuts and also between the brake rotor and the wheel. This is to give some lubrication before I use the 19mm socket to unscrew the four nuts. Okay, so now I jack up the car a little bit and the wheel is still touching the ground. This is the time to take the nuts off the wheels. The reason you want to do it now is because now the tire is touching the ground. It provides you friction, and then you can use that friction to work against the nuts. Therefore, you can turn it counterclockwise. If the wheel is off the ground, you're gonna find a hard time to take the nuts off because the wheel will turn. Okay, so I managed to get the nuts off. Sorry, I gotta take my glove off. You can see now these are turning. Right now, I'm gonna jack up the rest of the car and put floor jack on the jack points. No, not the floor jack. Sorry, the jack stands. This is to provide extra security. Otherwise, you're gonna have a nasty surprise. The car may fall down if your floor jack fails. Okay, so now I put the jack stands underneath the car, and I put newspaper on top of it to prevent any scratches on both sides. And then afterwards, I'm gonna lower the floor jack onto the jack stand. Okay. So now the car is on the jack stand, and you can see the floor jack is disengaged. Now I'm gonna work on the brake. Now I'm gonna try to take the tire off. Sometimes the brake rotor is so rusted, it actually fuses against the rim of the tires. So what I usually do is put WD-40 lubricant in between the seam and take a mallet and just hammer the tire from the outside and also from the inside. So I'm gonna hammer a couple times. I leave a mark, and then just hammer the tire from the inside and try to knock it out. Okay, so you can see we got rust inside the wheel well and also on the outside of the rotor. This is all rusted. You can see this is the old rotor. Next, I'm gonna go into the car, turn the steering wheel, and so I can get this whole assembly pointed outwards, and then I can take the caliper off and all the pads off, and then eventually take the rotor off and replace it. First thing is I'm gonna try to take the caliper off, this one, and after this nut is heavily torqued. It's 80 pounds-foot of torque on the nut, and there are two of them, one down there and one up here. This one I believe is 16. So I'm gonna take these four nuts off and then so I can change the pads and the rotor. Or before I did that, I put some WD-40 to lubricate them. Okay, so I managed to take one on the bottom off, you can see, and and then I managed to loosen the top. This is 17mm, this is 12mm. So you can see I loosen it. Okay, like they say, when you loosen the caliper, you don't want to hang it on the side because you may damage the hose. So what I did, I'm gonna find some platform and just put this thing on top of it. Either that, or you can take a wire and just hang it off of the wheels. Okay, I'm gonna take this thing off and start changing the pad in the rotor. Okay, sometimes you may find hard to take the pads off. What I usually do is just take a screwdriver and then go in and wedge it and try to take it out. And then I put some newspaper at the bottom to prevent some any liquids or dust that's falling on the ground that I have to clean. Okay, so I took off the caliper and the caliper assembly. As you can see, the next is try to get an impact driver to take these two screws off. Now, I believe a lot of people out there say Honda car has this feature and other cars don't have them, and that's why you need to get an impact driver. These screws are really hard to get off because sometimes when they rust, you will seize. That's why you need an impact driver, which I believe if you hit it with a hammer, you actually put 200 pound-foot of torque. Anyway, essentially that's the tool. Okay, so this is the impact driver, and this is the first time doing this, so wish me luck. Okay, so I hit a couple times. Actually, I hit it by 60 times. Put some WD-40 on it, and now the screw is off. Now this is probably the most difficult part of the Honda brake change, because I don't know why they put screws on these rotors. I believe they are the only manufacturer out there who will do this. Anyway, good luck to me on the other one. Okay, so I managed to get the other one off. This time, last I hit about like 15 times, and then it's off. Now next time when you put it back in, make sure to put some anti-seize on the screw. Otherwise, it's gonna be a pain in the ass next time you're trying to take it off. Okay, so you may find a hard time to take the rotor off because it's so rusted. What I did is put WD-40 on these 4 screws and just take a mallet and hit from the inside. Do it a couple times, rotate it, do it a couple times, rotate it, and you should be able to get it off. Okay, so I managed to get the rotor off. Next is take a brake cleaner and clean all this, brush it off so you don't have any rust in here. And that's, you want to take the rust off so you don't want to put new rotor on with the rust in there. Anyway, okay, keep going. Okay, so now I put some fluid on it, clean it, use a brush. Brush out all the rust, get everything out. Next is putting on a new brake rotor. Now every time you buy a brand new rotor, it comes in a pack like this, and when you open it, you gotta clean off all the chemicals they put on it to prevent the rust, but you gotta take them off before you put it on the car. So what you need to do is buy a brake cleaner, clean the surface off, and then put the rotor on. Now remember, when you put the brake cleaner on, you gotta do it on both sides because they put it on both sides of the surface. So once you put it on it, just go ahead and clean off any of the anti-rust chemical they put on it. Okay, once you put the rotor on, before you screw it in, be sure to put some anti-seize lubricant on the screw, so next time when you try to replace your rotor again, it's not going to be a pain in the butt. So I got these from Advanced Auto Parts. Okay, one thing I forgot to say is before you put the new rotor back in, what you can do is you put the anti-seize all within this section to prevent any rust being seizing up your rotor. So next time you don't have to take a hammer and try to whack it out. Anyway, I'm gonna go and do it. Okay, so I'm done with this. Next, I'm gonna put the rotor in. Now before I put the caliper assembly back in, I'm just gonna brush it, clean it, get rid of all the dust and rust, and that's it. Also, before you put the nuts back into the caliper assembly, put some anti-seize on it and then torque it. Use a torque wrench to torque it to 80 foot-pound, sorry. And then that's it, keep going. Okay, so I put these two screws back in with anti-seize inside them. Next is get a torque wrench and torque them to 80 foot-pounds. Okay, so I managed to torque these, both of them, to 80 foot-pounds. And I got this torque wrench from Harbor Freight. And as usual, as I said before, these two are 17mm sockets. Okay. Okay, so I got these brake pads. This the inside, this is the outside. Now before you put them back in, what you want to do is put some grease here, 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 and here. And also on the outside of the pads. For this one, because the piston is pressed against it, you want to put a ring here. And here, the outside pad, you want to put grease here and here, because it's not a ring that's pressed against it. Okay, so now you put the pads back in. Next is try to put the caliper back in, actually. And before you do that, you have to put a C-clamp to squeeze the piston back in. Now before you do that, you have to open the hood and unscrew the brake fluid container cap. So I'm gonna do it now. Okay, so I open the hood and then unscrew the cap of the brake fluid container. Okay, I'm gonna put the C-clamp and press this piston back in. Okay, so I had a problem with the C-clamp, and I just put the old brake pad back in and then try to press the piston back in. Okay, so I decided not to put the grease on the pad, but I just put it on the caliper itself and some of the piston. This will prevent squeaking on the road. Okay, so now I'll put the caliper back in. Now is put the screw back in, 16 foot-pound, and then I put some anti-seize on it. So next time when I take it out, it will be easier. It'll be here and here. So anti-seize on the screw, put it back in. 16 foot-pound. Okay, so I got this torque wrench that's actually come in inch-pound. So I have to convert it to foot-pound. Well, so sorry, from 16 foot-pound back to inch-pound. That's 192 inch-pounds. And then the tick between 120 and 240 is divided by 10. So each tick is 12. Therefore, I gotta take 192 minus 120 divided by 12. That'll give me 6 ticks. So you can see I'm at 6. So it's 120 and then 6 ticks. That will give me 192 inch-pound, which is 16 foot-pound of force. This is just another lesson when you go and buy your tools. Make sure what kind of unit comes in and you'll be able to do the conversion. I got this a long time ago. I forgot where I got it from, but just be sure to get the right tool. And be sure to know how to use it, and be sure to read the instruction book. Okay, so I took it back to 16 foot-pound, and now I'm gonna go in there and rotate the steering wheel and get this whole assembly perpendicular, so I can put the tire back in. Oh, before you put the tire back in, put some anti-seize on these. So next time it's easier to get it off. Okay, so I put some anti-seize on the nut and bolt, on the screw, sorry, not on the nut. And then I'm gonna put the wheel back in. Notice I moved the steering wheel so the whole thing is now perpendicular to the car. It's easier for me to put the tire back in. And the tire each the nut will take 80 foot-pounds of torque. One thing is, before I put the tire back in, notice these rust. So what I'm gonna do is put some anti-seize here, and then put the tire back in. Okay, so I put the anti-seize back in, and on it I'm gonna put the tire back in, the tire. As usual, this is the first time I'm doing this, so I made a mistake. I forgot to put the spring back in. The spring that holds the pads, and also the protective cover that they gave me. So I need to put these in on both sides and put the caliper back in. That's the mistake. Lesson learned. Okay, so I put the cover back in and the spring back in. Now I'm just gonna put a little bit more grease on that thing and put the caliper back in. And then re-torque it, 16 foot-pounds. So okay, after I reinstalled the spring and I put the pad cover back in, I straightened the steering wheel, now it's perpendicular. And I'm gonna reinstall the tires, which already have anti-seize inside. And then I'm gonna put it back in. 80 foot-pounds of torque on these screws. Okay, so I got the tire back in, put the nuts back in, hand screwed it. Now I'm gonna screw it with a breaker bar and then with a torque wrench, 80 foot-pounds. So what you do is do stock cross patterns. Do this one first, this one, and this one, and this one. Now I forgot to mention at the beginning, when you take the nuts off the tires, please use these type of socket. It has 6 sides. Don't use a one with multiple sides, because those may strip your nut, the bolt nut. Anyway, you will be able to get this from Harbor Freight. For me, this is a 19 millimeter for the tires, the bolt. Okay, one thing I forgot to mention is I tightened the bolt back in, but once you want to tighten even further to 80 foot-pounds, you have to lower the car, because the whole tire will turn. And it will be really hard to torque those nuts back in. So I'm gonna jack up the car and then take out the jack stand, lower the car down, and then tighten those bolts back to 80 foot-pounds. Okay, another thing, before I lower the car and then torque the wheel back to 80 foot-pounds, I need to put the cap back to the brake fluid container and lower the hood. Okay, so I jack up the car, take out the jack stands, and now the car is back on its wheel. I'm going to tighten it to 80 foot-pounds, and that'll be done for this side. After that, it's the other tire. So I'm not going to film that one. It's basically just the exact same thing as this one, except everything's reversed. Well, not exactly reversed, but you get the point. Okay, before you do anything, I torque the tire back to 80 foot-pounds, and now the whole car is level on the ground. And like I said, before you do anything, first thing is go in there into your car, start your car, and then press the brake a couple times until it's tight. This is very, very important. Do not drive this car until you press that brake a couple times to get it tight. Otherwise, you're gonna have problems. Now my car is manual, so I also got a clutch pedal. So I'm gonna go ahead and start the car, and then press my brake a couple times until it's tight. Okay, it's tight. Now I'm gonna take the drive for a short distance to make sure everything's fine before I take this car up to a highway, or before I kill myself. Okay, that will be it. Thank you.